Yes, greetings family. Dr. David Roots coming at you with something interesting as usual. You know, it's all about health and wellness and wealth and prosperity. That's what we're trying to lead our lives towards. So today we're going to be talking a bit about some along the lines of health and wellness, in particular some kitchen chemistry. Now, in the background, I'm sitting here in my kitchen. You'll see a little chemistry set. I was doing a bit of chemistry, experiments with my son early on. And just, for those that don't know, I am a chemistry teacher. So I have a background in the sciences, specifically marine and environmental sciences. And so I teach chemistry pretty much on an everyday basis. I teach it to the college level. So I'm pretty knowledgeable about chemistry from my day-to-day work, but also I'm very knowledgeable about it from the other, my own research that I do on chemically related topics, including those that relate to health and wellness. So we were just going through some of the basic experiments that come into chemistry set. Many of you might have bought these for your children, but it was really good for me because there were so many different things that I could show them based off my knowledge. So after we had finished, I was just playing around with it myself, and I said, well, let me take a look at the chemistry of the drinking water that we have available in my house, because obviously for people who are into health and wellness, the water we drink is of prime importance, and there's always a concern about whether the quality of the water that we're getting from our taps, how good it is. Now, I will say that I live in London, and the nice thing about London and many cities, you can check your water quality online, and the water quality coming out of taps is relatively good. So that's freely available for anyone to check. You just put in your postcode and it will give you the water quality. Of course, they have to treat it in certain ways with things like chlorine and other different treatments that they will put the water through in order to make it safe for people to use, to drink, to shower in, things like that. So for myself, I have installed a charcoal filter underneath the sink to ensure that the water that we use is already relatively safe to drink coming out of the tap. But for people who want to enhance their drinking water, people who are really into their health and their wellness, people like me, I've put in a charcoal filter that we could use. And when necessary, of course, I also buy bottled water, spring water or still water, which I can use also to consume personally. Now, before I go into some of the interesting things what I found about tap water, I will say that I am a chemist, I am a scientist, so I look at evidence-based things. I don't just go on hearsay. So for those people who are concerned about drinking enough water, but not able to afford to treat their water by buying a filter, then I would say that drinking the tap water is okay for you. The reason why is that if you look at the records when it comes to the chlorination of water over time, you will see a very statistically significant drop in the number of deaths related to waterborne diseases after the municipal chlorination of water. Now, that's not to say that we want to be drinking chlorinated water, and because having water that is pure and clean coming from underground springs as well as from clean rainwater sources obviously will be better. But the reality is many of us live in urban environments. So, and also many people are not able to afford the different types of filtration systems, whether it's ones that you can put into your drinking jugs like the Brita filters, or more expensive ones like the under the sink filters, or even sometimes you have reverse osmosis and distillation systems, which are very expensive. Many people cannot afford that, but you still need to be drinking water. So drinking some water is better than not drinking any water at all. So there's levels to this. If you have to drink your tap water, then drink it, because most likely if you're living in a modern place, the water is safe to drink. If you can't afford bottled water or some sort of water service, then do that. If you can step it up and afford a filter, then do that. So this is not about judging, but this is about real science and taking a quick look. So in terms of the water that's coming out of the sink, as I said, the water is tested, and I can go and check on that. And the nice thing about in England and London, they keep chlorination to the very minimal level. Okay, so really there's just some residual chlorine that's supposed to be left in the water by the time it gets to your tap. And I wanted to check that and see what was the chlorine level like. So there's a simple test that I could use using my son's chemistry set, which you could possibly buy online. You can do some of these things yourself, and it's through a displacement reaction. So one of the chemicals that we can use, I don't know if I can get it on camera. Let's see here. Let's see if I can show it to you. Potassium iodide. Okay, so potassium iodide. So potassium iodide, how can we use this and how can we use it to test our water? Well, just a reminder, I'm only going to look at chlorine, okay, and the presence of chlorine. When they chlorinate water, you get free chlorine in the water, and you can get chloroamine, so that and different chloride salts that might end up in the water when the water is chlorinated, okay, at the water treatment plant. So this chlorine is used to ensure that if there's any bacteria or any sort of pathogens that end up in our water supply, that these pathogens are killed, because chlorine is quite toxic to most living things. So the levels of chlorine are regulated and monitored quite heavily, okay, and they're supposed to be kept to a very low level, okay. So I wanted to see, because there are times when I have to use the water obviously to drink, there are times when obviously I cook with the water. I wanted to see what would the level of chlorine be like. Would I be able to detect any chlorine? So by using this chemical, potassium iodide, I can do what's called a displacement reaction. Now chlorine is more reactive than iodine. So if I add this potassium iodide to water that has chlorine in it, then what should happen if it has chlorine in it? The chlorine will displace the iodine, and the solution will become potassium chloride, and the iodine will come out. And the iodine has a brownish sort of color. So if that happens, I should see a brown color. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look out for that brown color. Now, I've done this already, so I kind of know what to expect. I've left the water to stand. Okay, I mean not to stand. So I've left the taps. I haven't run the taps for quite some time now. Okay, because if there's chlorine in there, I want it to build up. Alright, so we're going to use some water straight from my tap. Okay, we're going to test that water against some bottled water that I bought. And we're going to also test some water after letting the tap run. So let's see. So I'm going to get some water. Excuse me if I turn my back for a minute. I'm in my kitchen, little kitchen lab, kitchen chemistry experiments going on. Okay, they're quite small test tubes. So I'm going to add this is the water I just got from the kitchen tap. So I'm going to add that if I can without spilling it. Okay, so that's the water from the kitchen tap. Put that there. Okay, I'm going to put tap. Let's put a cork on it. All of this is from my son's chemistry set. Okay, so I put a cork on it. Yeah, just put a cork on it just in case there is any chlorine. We don't want any chlorine to leak. Okay, leave that there. Okay, and so let's use some bottled water. All right, Island Springs bottled water. Looking in the back, this says it contains chlorides at, what's that, 6.1 milligrams per liter. Okay, so that's really, really low amount of chloride. So we're going to add some bottled water. So it's the bottled water to that one. Okay, and now I'm going to let the tap run for a bit, and we're going to let the tap run and see if that has a difference. Okay, let's use my big pot in the back, which has some sea moss, some Irish moss that I just soaked and I boiled up this morning, and I'm letting it cool down so I can put it into bags. Okay, so if you hear in the background, I'm just letting the water run. Okay, not for too long. So I'm going to take some water now. Okay, so here we go. So this is the tap water after it's been running. So this is the bottled water. It's a little B for bottled tap water, and we'll put R for after it's run. Okay, so now I'm going to add my potassium iodide. Use one of the little things that they gave here. Okay, so I'm going to add the potassium iodide. I'll add it to the running water first. 2 scoops each. Oops. 2 scoops. To the bottled water. And now to the tap water. Let me just shake it up just in case any chlorine has escaped. See if I can take this off. Oh man. Let's put that. Put that back on. Always put your tops in your chemicals. Okay, made up a bit of a mess over here. Gave a little glass rod. It's a nice little chemistry set. It's something really useful to do with the children. Okay, mix that one up. Careful not to contaminate. Okay, so let's look at our results. So we're going to use a white background. So this is the water that's run. You can see that's still pretty clear. No sign of anything. Bottled water, that's pretty clear. No sign of any displacement. And the tap water, it's also clear. However, I can see a little brown tinge. A brown tinge. Let's try that. In fact, let me try this again. So that's to confirm that that's the running water. Clear. I'm going to use this again. Okay, so I was doing all of that because it's probably a little bit difficult for you to see in the camera, but for the, especially with the way the light is, for the water from the tap that you get when it first comes out of the tap, I can definitely see like a brown sort of hue. It's very light to the water after I've added the potassium iodide. Okay, it is different than this bottled water. Now, the whole point of this, so this is still a useful result, because what it shows me is that one, that the levels of chlorine in the water, true to what is being reported on the water quality testing, are very, very extremely low. Okay, extremely low. Because if not, I would have seen a much clearer indication. Just to let you know, when I did this earlier and the water had been standing for some time, and I took the water immediately as it came out of the tap, that one I let it run a bit, even just for a second, and then I collected the water. That little difference could make a huge, that little change could make a huge difference. So the thing about chlorine is that it has a very low temperature point to which it turns back from being in solution, dissolved in solution, to a gas. They call it off-gassing. So while that chlorine, that water, is in the pipes and there's residual chlorine in it, you'll find, if you were able to test it right in the pipes, then you'll probably find a higher level of chlorine. And obviously that gas, that free chlorine, as it off-gasses out of the water, will build up in the pipes. So if you turn on your water right away, some of that gas will go into the water that's going into your cup or to whatever you're drinking with, and you probably detect the chlorine. However, once you let the chlorine, once you let the tap water run, the chlorine that's residual in that water very quickly evaporates and goes into the air. Okay, and this is called off-gassing. So it's one useful method. If you're not able, what can we learn from this? If you're not able to buy a filter, to buy one of the more expensive water purification systems, which come with the pros and cons anyway, because there's a big debate out there about distilled water versus reverse osmosis water, so on and so on. But if you're not able to buy that, and let's face it, that many people aren't, but they want to try to do something better for the health as far as drinking water, one key simple technique is just to let your water run for a while. Let the water run so that the buildup of chlorine is as minimal as possible in the water that is going into whatever you're trying to take it from. Another thing that I do, if I have to use the water from my tap, is I use a glass jug like this. Okay, glass jug like this, and I'll fill this up with water. I let the water run, and then I'll fill this up with water, and then I'll leave this. I'll cover it with a ceramic dish or with some sort of covering, and then I'll leave it in the sunlight for a while. Okay, and so what that does, if anyone knows about chemistry, they'll know that chlorine is easily broken down by sunlight, as well as the warmth from the sunlight will cause any chlorine that's dissolved in the water to evaporate from the water also. So when you take the top off and you're able to use that water, okay, that water then will contain, hopefully, a lot less of the dissolved gases and substances that you don't want in there. The water can become a bit flat. So what I do also is, from time to time, I would aerate the water. Okay, so I aerate the water, thereby making sure there's oxygen in that water. to keep the water from becoming flat. You can also do things like add, for example, some salt to the water to give it a bit more taste, so sodium chloride, okay, which will be different from chlorine gas that they use to disinfect the water. Sodium chloride is broken up into two different ions, the sodium ion and the chlorine ion, which has a different impact obviously on the body. These types of salts are already natural. Many salts are natural in the drinking water you get from springs and from the different sources anyway. Okay, so that's just a really interesting thing where it provides just a simple way of being able to, one, check your water. Do go online and check your drinking water quality by, hopefully the companies that are providing the drinking water will give you the information online. But also, if you can, obviously you can buy filters, but try to buy a water testing kit also, so you really have an idea of what you're working with. And if in doubt and you cannot do anything else, then try to use the off-gassing method. So that's one thing, is letting the water run before you drink it. Two, if possible, if you want, you can let your water stand and you can aerate it. Okay? So here's to your health, here's to your wellness. This is Dr. David Roots, the Roots Chemist, coming at you. Give thanks.